Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for having us well into the night here. I promise it won't be more than a couple of hours, but it'll all be very, very interesting and funny and all of those things. I want to just start by acknowledging a few things. First of all, I know, our first presentation to council was in December of 2019, and we returned in October of last year, and COVID kind of extended the timeline. So this effort has spanned quite a bit of time. And I know, Councilor Roletto, you don't benefit from those prior conversations. So I just want to acknowledge that, and any questions you have while we're going, please feel free to jump in. I also want to acknowledge Daisha for all her hard work over many months. And she's really done amazing work and been in the weeds the whole time. And I want to acknowledge that effort, as well as the Youth Advisory Council. They did a lot of research and deep thought for us and gave us their perspective as we've gone through this, and we're well coordinated by Rania Ayub as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of that. Also grateful to have Roger Kainu from the Oregon Department of Energy hanging in there. Roger, I owe you 1, 2, or 3 for hanging in there. Thank you. As well as Anthony Roy with Earth Advantage. Anthony had to bail out a little while ago, but we'll hear a bit from Roger as we're going through. They've been important partners through this at the state. So I'm going to just share some slides. And let's see. Okay. So just going to really kind of try to advance through this. We have 20 slides, and I'll make it as brief as possible. Daisha, as what my wife often says, when I'm rushed, I forget things. So please jump in as needed when I do that. We'll give you the background and review where we've been, talk about the benefits of a home energy score policy in Hillsborough from our perspective and from what we've learned. We will touch on the partners, a couple of which I've mentioned just now. We will run through the community and stakeholder input that was received out over the winter months. And then we'll talk about something we're really excited about, home energy score and energy efficiency grants and other opportunities that we're working on. And summarize just the essential policy requirements that are contained in the discussion draft ordinance that we included with the staff memo, and then offer up a few ideas for a policy pathway for you to consider. So mentioned that we've been here twice before. This is our third work session on this topic. The home energy score policy has great potential to support several city goals, and including the city's equity objectives, reduction of residential energy use, increase of residential energy efficiency retrofits, and the specific Hillsborough 2035 action to establish a home energy score policy in Hillsborough, as well as your 2021 council priority to continue support of the Environmental Stewardship Committee and the actions that that group leads. So what is a home energy score? It's essentially an efficiency calculation of a home. It is a methodology that has been developed by the US Department of Energy and has been adopted by the State Department of Energy that accounts for a home's physical properties, heating and cooling systems, and other aspects to generate an efficiency score analogous to miles per gallon for a car. The cost of a score ranges from $130 to $250, depending on the complexity of the building. I just wanted to highlight again, this is the score from my own house here in Hillsborough. This is the first one that we had done, and it includes a numerical score like you see on a sticker, on a miles per gallon sticker on a vehicle. both for greenhouse gas emissions, which you see down toward the bottom on the first page, and then the score of 1 to 10, 1 being the least energy efficient and 10 being the most energy efficient. I'm a little sheepish to say the first score produced a 4 for us. There are some architectural reasons for that. We've done quite a lot of energy efficiency improvements here. On the second page, I'd like to call out that there was, it was noted that there was potential with one action to improve the score of our house to a 6, and that was a projection which could further improve the energy efficiency of the home another 12% and over $200 per year. We went ahead and did that. I had been thinking about it anyway, so we got a heat pump water heater to replace a relatively old electric resistance water heater. And sure enough, the updated report improved the score of our home to a 6 and had a significant, it basically reduced the cost of heating water in our home by a 5th. So it's remarkable what one newer technology can achieve. Also wanted to include some newly collected data that I'm not going to speak deeply about, but I thought it was really helpful, and PGE said it was ripe enough to share it this evening. Some work that they're doing related to the Smart Grid Testbed program in Hillsborough, and this is based on PGE customer data for 3 different aspects. The first is energy burden, which in Oregon is defined as a household spending 6 or more % of household income on energy-related expenses, and the portion of these tracts that are experiencing energy burden. And so we can see there's some fairly high numbers there within our community. And so that's one piece that we found to be pertinent to this work. The next one is PGE customers seeking energy assistance. And we have some elevated numbers here in Hillsborough there as well, which relates to poverty. And then poverty itself, as I know you're aware, we do have relatively high incidences of poverty in our community. And so this energy specific, electric utility specific data underscores that. So just to tick through the main benefits of a home energy score, at its core, it's a consumer protection policy. It provides information and transparency about one of the most significant investments that we experience in our lives. I mentioned that it was a standardized method to compare energy efficiency attributes between homes. So it gives us some sense of the relative efficiency of one home as compared to another. It also identifies those energy efficiency measures that can help improve the efficiency of the home. It does provide support for lower income community members in the form of reduced energy costs and utility costs. And it also provides helpful documentation for federal lending programs, which can be really helpful for lower income individuals and families seeking to get into home ownership. And it can be really helpful information to inform local energy efficiency incentives. So it provides really helpful data for entities like the Energy Trust of Oregon, who design programs around specific energy efficiency measures. Benefits specifically of energy efficiency upgrades. Most of this is relatively obvious. Improved energy efficiency means reduced use of natural resources and improved environmental outcomes, as well as equity outcomes. We see very compelling data in improved indoor air quality and health outcomes related to indoor air quality. It increases home comfort and home values in many cases, and it reduces demand on the electrical power grid. I think I'll just go through this very quickly. This gives a relative improvement for each score that a home can realize as compared to a score of 5, for example. So a 10 would be 50% plus more efficient than a home that scores a 5. So wanted to offer Roger, among some of the key partners who have helped us with this work, Oregon Department of Energy and Earth Advantage I've mentioned, and also the Rocky Mountain Institute, who have helped to facilitate a national cohort of folks working with cities all across the country to consider these policies. So with that, I'm going to ask Roger if he wants to say a few words on the state DOE perspective.
Sure, thanks, Peter. Thank you, Mayor Callaway and members of the council. Roger Kainu, I'm with the Oregon Department of Energy, and let me not forget to thank Peter and Dacia as well. They've been excellent people to work with. Hats off to Hillsborough. The Oregon Department of Energy helps Oregonians make informed decisions and maintain a resilient and affordable energy system. We advance solutions to shape an equitable, clean energy transition, protect the environment and public health, and responsibly balance energy needs and impacts for current and future generations. ODO has developed a framework for residential energy scoring that ensures accuracy and consistency throughout the state. The framework is built upon the United States Department of Energy Home Energy Scoring tool used for calculating home energy scores. Key benefits to the home energy score are it's an easily understood information source, it's low cost to benefit ratio, and the shareability of the information is excellent. To help inform consumer decision-making, ODO supports cities interested in home energy scoring by offering technical information, assistance with policy development, assessor management and training for the network of home energy score stakeholders. As with miles per gallon, home energy score reveals facts about home characteristics that are not easily recognized by consumers. Much like other variables considered in a home purchase, a home energy score is a factual representation of energy characteristics and performance. Our national US DOE supports home energy scoring as a way to educate and motivate consumers to improve home performance. The same US DOE supports home energy score to become recognized, widely used, and influential tool in the market that leads to an improved US housing stock with better energy performance, lower costs, and greater comfort, as well as more efficient use of natural resources. It was in 2010 that Vice President Biden launched the home energy score to help homeowners make cost-effective decisions. Interesting how that's played out. Currently, numerous bills at the federal level look to fund the advancement of energy efficiency and greenhouse gas reduction. The home energy score creates a reliable basis to use funding in an effort to upgrade homes. So this isn't just about Hillsborough and being cutting edge. This is a huge benefit across the state and the region. Home energy scoring is growing across the nation and building a significant network of trained professionals doing this work to inform the public. Thank you for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Roger, and thanks again so much for hanging in there tonight. Really, really appreciate it. So just a relatively high-level summary of the community and stakeholder input that we initiated in November, which followed our second work session with you last fall. We had our survey up for a few months through the third week of February, got over 700 responses, which really pleased us. And we saw a fairly even balance, that those expressing support and opposition to a policy, and some neutral. We also had a number of both formal and informal stakeholder meetings with entities like the Hillsborough Chamber, Home Builders Association, Metropolitan Area Realtors, Oregon Energy Trust, Washington County Housing Rehab, Community Action, and others. So we got a lot of feedback. Some of the most common reasons cited in favor include greater transparency in real estate transactions, the environmental benefits that I already touched on and the urgency of them, benefits to marketing a home for sale, support of the community goals that I mentioned earlier, the fact that they're more helpful than a basic energy audit, and the standardized way to rate homes against one another, and provides a list of those energy efficiency measures that buyers can choose to implement. And I want to just emphasize there's no requirement to actually implement the energy efficiency improvements. The score policy would simply require that the score be obtained. Some of the most common cited reasons in opposition of a policy: that it's government overreach, that it should be the buyer's responsibility rather than the seller, that the buyers will ask for improvements which would cost the sellers more money, that the program should be voluntary rather than mandatory, and that it should be incentivized so that people would choose to do it. Shouldn't be part of the real estate transaction, and that the city should provide support for scores and energy efficiency measures. We had some other input. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there were quite a few comments in the feedback that were, there's some complexity to the policy, to the concepts, and I think there were some understandings that weren't quite accurate. Of course, things like whether it's unconstitutional, that it would be a source of revenue or a tax for the city, things like that. And so we highlighted those separately too as we went through. One of the things that we've been doing a lot of work on that we're very excited about is opportunities to really increase awareness and access to existing incentives, and to create some incentives from the city to both obtain energy scores as well as conduct energy efficiency assessments. So one thing, just as an example, that we learned is that Community Energy Project have existing funding sources for income qualified homeowners to obtain a score. So they said, we just need to know who is out there. So if you help us do that, we'll deliver those things. They can also deliver insulation, free Nest thermostats, steeply reduced heat pump water heaters. And so we're really exploring those opportunities and partnerships. Washington County Housing Rehab is very excited because they said that they're focused on the safety and fundamental condition of a home. Having information about the energy efficiency and the energy systems would be very helpful to them to further improve the home while they're there and have that contact with somebody. So those are just a couple of examples of things that we're working on, and we'll be working with Robbie and the exec team very soon to flesh out some of those things, but we're very excited. So just to summarize the policy requirements that we envision, one of the things that we've really tried to do is design a policy that is fundamentally as similar as possible as the others that exist in this region, because realtors do work across boundaries and people move across boundaries. And so having consistency is helpful. It would, in its current iteration, it would require the score to be obtained at the time of listing for single family residences. It would have to be conducted by a state licensed home energy assessor, of which there is a go-to list and very easy to contact and obtain through them. Community Energy Project, by the way, is one of the entities that does the scoring. The reports would have to be provided to all licensed real estate agents working on the seller's behalf. It would have to be provided to prospective buyers while it's listed, be posted in all real estate listings where the home is listed, and made available upon request for quality assurance. And some of these machinations would be part of the arrangement that we would have with the state Department of Energy as well, in terms of facilitating that. And then one of the conversations that we had with the home builders was, if a builder builds a number of homes that are really identical, whether they can score those as a group rather than having to actually score each one. And there is a way to do that. So we've accounted for that in the policy. And we also have included foreclosures as as being covered by the requirement. So our thoughts are that at least these few policy pathways could be explored. One would be a mandatory time of listing policy with those elements that I described, and that would be effective this fall, say September 1st. Another pathway would be a mandatory time of listing policy that would be delayed effective until sometime next year. And then another option would be to not have a mandatory policy, which would be a status quo. And so those were just our ideas for policy options. I would say, just to be honest, that the staff would like to see a policy, but I'll just leave it at that. I know ultimately it's obviously up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and hopefully I didn't miss too many important things there. Just check in with Daisha to see if there's anything that I missed that I should have mentioned.
No, I don't think so. I think that was great.
I have one. Could you share the Environmental Sustainability Committee's input with everyone?
Well, I'll do my best. I'd say generally supportive, and Councilor Martin, obviously you're the chair, and you've been there for, I don't know if you've been there for each of the conversations, but yes, I would say that our Environmental Stewardship Committee has been expressed support of a policy. I know that's fairly high level, but
The other thing I would add there, and just to be clear, it was a conversation I was listening to and not participating in. My goal was to hear from folks because we did establish the Environmental Stewardship Committee. It's late, in order to, so we could hear from them. And most of their comments were around making sure that we're addressing folks, is basically the folks, they were supportive of the policy and wanted to make sure we addressed folks' concerns. So things like having free assessments for low-income folks, being able to really truly educate about this. There was a lot of focus of, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. So to be clear, the Stewardship Committee wasn't just, hey, gung-ho, perfect, we don't need to hear the details. It was a very clear, here's what we think, this is how we want to be able to move forward. And I think that's important for us to consider, given that we did have this committee. It's created out of 2035, and their input is really important.
thank you very much.
And Peter, didn't you do that? I mean, I think that in reading the staff report, there is, the program for people that are lower income to pay for the scores. And so did you take that feedback?
Yes, we did. We have a couple of different pathways, community energy project, and we just honestly weren't aware of it until we met with them, have funding for certain income qualified homeowners. And we have also set aside some funding in my budget requested for next year to cover those that those funds would not cover. So absolutely, we have that as part of the program.
So Peter, speaking about that, and it's a good presentation. So if somebody has a house and it's not very well fixed up and they want to sell it and they have to have a score, and let's say they can't fix what needs to be fixed, so whoever buys that house will assume that responsibility. So I think overall, I think it's important and for people to understand what that will mean to the long range of the longevity of that house and the people living in that house. I think it's I think it wouldn't work unless there was some kind of a break that people would get based on what their income is. But I guess I wonder, like, for everybody else, because, well, in my area is becoming a hot market to sell my house. And I might not be thinking, automatically about what isn't working in my house in the best way that it could, but I might have a good chance because I have a newer house. there's a lot of people that have older homes and are not low income and will be bearing those costs. So I guess what sort of convincing do you think that they'll need? They'll know they'll live in a home, environmentally friendly, but how do we, you know, either you got to fix it now or you're fix it when you sell it.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Alcara. That's a really helpful question for me to, underscore that the report is really the required piece is just to obtain the report, and all that is information, and distinct from a home inspection, which really does identify more of the functional and safety related aspects of a home. The home energy score really just identifies and defines the energy efficiency of the home. So it will identify opportunities to make the home more efficient. But those things aren't going to be of the nature. For example, when we bought our house, there was some random hot wire sticking out of the wall that was truly a hazard. Those kinds of things, or a roof that needs replacing, those kinds of things are a real immediate burden. Most of the things in an energy report are going to be opportunities. If it's a safety related thing, for example, with a furnace, then that's going to be something that is more of that safety inspection related thing. So if that makes sense.
But Peter, if I guess to build off of Councilor Alcara's example, to use the analogy of a used car, there's a dent, and so I'm selling the car as is. If you don't want to buy it with that dent, then you don't have to buy it. If with that paper, and it shows things that could be improved, but if you don't want to buy it as is, then you don't have to put down an offer, and because I'm selling it as is. And so it doesn't force the seller to do anything. Now, and certainly we're in a market where I can't, where there's typically multiple offers on a house, and I don't see, somebody who's wanting, to hold, a score, I guess I don't see that as stopping a sale in this market. But all it does is allow for a more informed purchaser, so that they know what they might have to do or what they could do in order to improve that. Now, the third option, that you listed, and by the way, thank you to you and Daisha for all of your work. Roger, thank you for for being with us tonight. The third one is, I guess, what we would call the optional choice. So it's not mandatory, but we could, put some carrots out there for people to do it. We could educate and really work to help people understand it's a community priority, and that we think it's worthwhile, and just kind of see what the take rate is, for a specific period of time, and then decide if it's getting the response that we expect or need, or it isn't, and then go accordingly from there. Okay, so we could start it in September. We could delay start it into I think July of 2022, or have it be optional. So are there other questions from council?
Oh, not a question, just I guess my thoughts on the policy.
Okay, so let's wait. If you don't mind, Council President, let's see if there's other questions, and then we can begin to share what, maybe where we're leading, okay? And we will only be sharing, our leanings, if you will, so that at a subsequent council meeting, we could bring back that policy for voting on. Okay, so Councillor Pace.
2 questions. 1, is there any evidence that this could drive up housing prices?
No,
Okay. And is there any benefit to making this voluntary in the beginning?
no. Let me just caveat the first answer if I can. There is evidence that there's no evidence that obtaining the score would have any effect like that on housing cost.
Okay.
There is evidence that that investing in energy efficiency improvements can increase the value of a home modestly, but we have very good academic research, not supported by any special interests, that has demonstrated that the long-term financial benefit of making those investments at least counteracts that increase in home value, and usually actually amounts to more than that, if you will. So it's a greater benefit than that.
Great.
And
And-
the second question, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Is there any benefit to making this voluntary for a year or 6 months or whatever?
We really don't think so. I wouldn't say that there's any detriment to it either, but there's just not going to be a lot of uptake, and really the objective is to get as many homes in our community with scores as possible, because that sort of lifts all boats over time.
In a seller's market, no one's going to voluntarily do this. Yeah. Okay.
We had one gentleman reach out. He saw the survey and he reached out and he said, I want to get the survey because I just want to get ahead of things. And I kind of went, oh, great.
Great.
But no, not many.
Can we clone him? Thank you.
Councillor Martin, I think I saw your hand.
The only clarifying thing I would say is that a voluntary approach followed by a mandatory approach at this point may actually induce more confusion, because if there's a certain point at which people say, oh, well, it's voluntary, and then it switches over to mandatory, then that might create confusion. That's the only thing I was going to add, but also that's not based on fact. It's just an intuition. So I just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you. Councillor Roletto or Councillor Van Beveren? All right, let's open it up and kind of get some direction from council.
So option 1 means you pull the bandage off now, and it starts in September. Option number 2, we give it a few months and we wait to pull the bandage off. Is that right?
It's a year, right?
And then number 3, we do nothing. Yeah. So if there's going to be education involved, I'm okay with September. Education for people. Because I don't know if the delay is going to do anything.
Can I share my, probably my strong opinions?
Please.
So I've been a big fan of this policy for a long time. I actually first learned about it at a National League of Cities conference, and spoke to a person that was there with the Department of Energy and kind of educated me on this. And I really, the more that I learn about it, the more that I think this is the right approach. So in thinking about how I was going to articulate all the things that I love about it, I actually thought that I'd read just a couple of the whereas statements, because I think staff did a really good job of boiling it down about delaying this or doing nothing actually does have a consequence, because the status quo is a consequence for many people. So I'm going to read a couple of them. I won't read them all. But they said, whereas the most common outcomes of poverty experienced by community members in Hillsborough is to fall behind in utility bills. Whereas affordable utility bills is cited as the #1 priority for Hillsborough community members experiencing poverty to feel stable and secure. whereas between 15 and 29%, so almost a third of Hillsborough households spend more than 6% of energy on their home, meaning they're considered energy cost burden. Whereas Hillsborough community members of color are more than twice as likely to be living in poverty as compared to white community members. Whereas the Hillsborough City Council has adopted goals to reduce community-wide residential energy use by 25% by 2035 over the 2010 baseline, and conduct energy retrofits in 20% of Hillsborough single-family homes. And then this last one I thought was really good. Even there's more actually, they did a good job with all of these, but whereas according to the Oregon Department of Energy, residential building energy uses contributes 15% of Oregon's greenhouse gas emissions. And so this is really good, I think, for consumer transparency. I don't think that the $150 for the acquiring the scores is really going to make any difference in the sale of the price of the home. Homes in the metro region have gone up by, I looked this up, about 11 to 15%. Some of those cities have these scores, some of them don't. But 11 to 15% is like $45,000 difference in market value over last year. So I don't think $150 is really going to make much of a difference in the sale of the home. But we have a lot of people, like I said, 15 to 29% that are really experiencing severe energy burdens. And I think that, you know, with the average, what was it, $630 in electricity, gas that a person spends each year in Hillsborough, I just think that some of these energy improvements can mean a lot to a lot of people. And so I don't want us to continue to delay this. You know, we've made it a council priority, not even this past year, but the year before that, because this is something that we wanted to pursue. And I think that it's time that we move forward and implement it. The two dates that were in the draft resolution were, or excuse me, draft ordinance were the first reading on the 15th of June, and then the second reading on the 6th of July. And so I would advocate maintaining those dates for a first and second reading of the ordinance, and then option one of implementation by September 1st.
I can add my piece just because Kyle said a lot of the things I was intending to say. I'm not going to repeat them because it just so happens to almost be morning. But what I will say to add on to that is the average home price is well over $400,000. At $400,000, you need to make at least $70,000, and that's if you have a good amount of money down to be able to pay for that every single month. A $250, the maximum price for an energy score that's going on around here is 0.05% of a $400,000 house, which, to be clear, is not even the median price in our city. I think it makes financial sense to do this. I think it's going to benefit energy bills. I think it's going to benefit residences. And I will go even further and say, not only do I think that we need to implement this in September, I think we need to have another conversation. I wanted to have it tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and guess not. I think we need to have another conversation about including rental households in this. I know there are some barriers there, but I think that's the next step, especially when we talk about energy burden, when we talk about poverty. Those folks generally, not always, but generally tend to live in rental households. And if we can affect and impact more people, I think that's really important.
Councilor Van Beveren. Okay.
Just want to point out our current record is 12:03.
Well, then let me get it under the wire then.
Come on, 4 minutes, Gina. Come on.
All I was gonna say is right now with, I've been noticing a lot of realtors' efforts in order to get families of color to get them into their first home ownership. For me, this is a vital piece of information to lead people down the right path as they learn to build generational wealth. And so, because this is a big investment. So, and I think that's what appeals to me a lot, is just further support as we see that turn to support those different groups of people.
I just want to weigh in. So at 12:04 to set a new record, I'm actually all in on this, and September is good. And I think for me, it's also compelling that we just have to get started on climate change. Just have to get started. So as soon as possible. So. And it's 12:01. Damn.
I'm down with September.
All right, Robbie, does that give you the clarity of direction?
Very clear, great discussion by the council. Thank you. I think we got everything we need as staff. Peter and I and Daisha and everybody will meet and get everything ready to go.
And we will have a conversation at a later date about residential rentals.
I will say we've got a very heavy work session schedule coming up the next few months, but we'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, no. This one is more because I know there are staff things. This one's more of like, we can address this months out. I'm not expecting like tomorrow for this, but I know staff capacity is an issue here, so there's a broader discussion there. But
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, that's wise not to talk about staff capacity at 12:03 a.m. Good call. Okay. So, Robbie, would you like to take us to 12:04?
Can I actually ask a quick question of you, Robbie, because I'm getting a lot of questions about what are the next steps with this. So I've been telling people it's based on what's in this draft ordinance. So would the first reading be on June 15th, like it says in the draft?
I believe that's our plan. The ordinance, as you said, is already fairly well crafted. We'll just, we left it flexible so we can make some tweaks based on council's direction tonight. So we should be able to get it. If for some reason it gets delayed by a couple of weeks, we'll let you all know, but that's our plan as of now. Yeah, and I would just close by just thanking Peter and Daisha once again, and maybe just one big thanks to all staff tonight. I think it was a great example of the quality of staff we have working for the city of Hillsborough. If you examine everything that happened tonight in the council meetings, the 2 work sessions, just a huge thanks to everybody. We have amazing staff for the city of Hillsborough and proud of them. And thanks for all the great discussion tonight.
We covered